Here's a statistic that might surprise you. More than half of working professionals say they've considered leaving their jobs to start a business, yet fewer than 10% actually follow through. A big part of why people hesitate, well, there's fear of the unknown. They worry about losing that steady paycheck, juggling family obligations, or wondering whether they can compete in a crowded market. But if you've ever felt that spark for entrepreneurship, if you've ever sat in a meeting and thought, I can build something better, today's episode is for you. So I've spent 15 years in multinational corporations handling everything from compliance and data privacy to global technology initiatives. It really was a fulfilling journey in many ways, but eventually I knew my path was leading someplace else. Well, fast forward to today, I'm the founder of ByteBow, focusing on Web3 and education and strategy and just really building across the UAE and East Africa and beyond. But let me share a quick story about the day that lit my entrepreneurial fuse. I was giving a presentation at what should have been a dream corporate gig. It had global reach, global impact, and it was really, on paper, it was perfect. But my mind kept drifting to how much more I could accomplish if I built something of my own. And I remember so clearly listening to my own voice walk through slide after slide after slide. And this little voice inside me telling me that it was time for a change. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's talk about the transition from corporate corridors to the fast-paced world of startups, the highs and lows and everything in between. First, let's rewind to my corporate days. Over 15 years, which is really a long period of time if you think about it. I worked in private practice, I worked for government, I worked in legal and compliance for large-scale big companies working on tech and data projects, trade compliance, doing investigations, everything in the legal compliance scope, you name it, I did it. Audits, everything. The really good part about the work was I was able to collaborate with teams across continents and cultures. So from that standpoint, it was really fulfilling. And I'm not saying that I didn't gain experience from all of those years. I gained a whole load of technical and legal experience from cybersecurity to evolving data privacy regulations. It really taught me to stay ahead of the curve. I also gained this project management sort of mindset where I could balance the high-stake initiatives of the exec team, work with diverse stakeholders, and just keep things running on time, even when there was like total chaos all around. I also learned this cross-cultural communication, working in China with a team of people who were from all over the world, not just from mainland China. It really shaped my mind about how important it is to really be aware of how you communicate with people from all around the world on the same team. But despite all of those great things that I learned, my role, it wasn't all smooth sailing. I think after years and years of corporate life, the bureaucratic challenges and the slow pace of innovation really got to me. I recall working on one data privacy project for a place I will not name, but a really big project, and we needed to be fast, we needed to be forward thinking, we needed to just, get things done. And the organization, the institution that I was working in, people had been there for like 20 years, and they were not trying to do anything different. It was so difficult to convince them the importance of data transformation. And to be honest, it was a losing battle because the corporate culture was old and traditional, and these people had no incentive to take on any additional work. And I felt that growing pull to create real impact on my own terms at my own pace. Look, if you're feeling that entrepreneurial nudge, which a lot of people do, Pay close attention to how things work in your current environment. Look for bottlenecks, inefficiencies, unrealized opportunities, and then think, what about that particular thing bothers me? Why does it bother me so much? And if this were my company, what would I do differently? And that will give you insight as to where your passion lies. So, how did I finally take the leap from a stable, well-paying corporate gig into this world of the unknown? Well, let me break it down. The first thing is that I really needed to get clear on my values, and I needed to get clear on the fact that whatever it was that I was going to build had to align with my values. I had been practicing law for so long that, honestly, I can't say that that is what was fulfilling to me. It was something that I did. It wasn't something that I would wake up every morning and say, yes, let me go and read those contracts. I love it so much. It was a job. It was something that I did. And for what I wanted to build next, I wanted it to be something I was passionate about, something that aligned with my values. And I know that I had this, small voice telling me that I needed to do something that would help underrepresented communities, especially women in tech and just women generally. I have for sure a soft spot for that. And that's what I wanted to do. It was not immediately clear how I was going to do it, but at least I knew that that's where I wanted to go. So when I first built ByteBow, that wasn't clear on how I was going to get there because ByteBow was originally meant for the China market. The word bow means to encompass or to protect. And so the idea was this is a consulting firm focused on data privacy. I got pulled into a lot of Web3 and blockchain projects, and so that's how the Web3 and blockchain piece came into play. But I had no idea how I was going to serve underrepresented communities. So you might also feel that way as well. You might also feel like, I know what I want to do, I just don't know how to get there. But I think the point is that we should be patient. We shouldn't think that on day one, whatever you build is going to meet all of your needs. It may not. You may go through 2, 3, 4 iterations, tweaking minor pieces of your business until you wake up one morning and you say, you know what, this is the best work I've ever done, and I'm completely fulfilled by it. And that's where you have to kind of keep your vision on, is that day where you wake up and you say, I love what I do. Because you may not have it on day one, but you should keep your eyes on the fact that that's where you want to go. And so for me, even though I was doing well in corporate, I had this nagging feeling, I'm helping someone else build their dream, while my dream is just sitting on the shelf. And that feeling just grew so hard to ignore. And I remember like my inner circle, my family and friends and mentors, they kept saying, Jamelia, you've got something. You just have to trust yourself. And it isn't so easy for us to look into someone else's life and say, oh, you've got something great. You just got to trust yourself and do it. It's like telling someone to just go and bungee jump when you know they're afraid of heights, right? It's not so easy. And I won't lie, making this decision was scary. There were nights I couldn't sleep. I was wondering if I'd made a mistake. I have children, right? I had a child that was about to go to college. How do you justify, right, from a financial standpoint, taking such a big risk? And every time doubt crept in, I remembered my goal of creating real, tangible impact and leveling the playing field. That was my goal. And if you're where I was, here's what I'd say. First, you got to name your fears. You got to call them out. For me, it was a fear of failing, right? And I think a lot of it was connected to embarrassment, right? So when you leave a job, you guys all know how this is. If you leave a job, you definitely don't want to be coming back to that same job, right? So a lot of it was fear of like, oh, if I quit this and I fail, am I going to have to come back to this job? Am I going to have to ask them for another role? That would be really embarrassing. So it was a fear of failure. It's definitely a fear about making money from the financial side. That's what you have to do. You have to name your fears. You have to call it out. Secondly, you have to seek out mentors. And I think as a society, we just have to get better about this. You've got to talk to people who've done it. You have to talk to people, even if they haven't done everything it is that you want to do, but you have to talk to people who have at least some portion of knowledge, some kind of perspective to how to get from where you are today to where you want to be. They may not have all the answers, but they've got some of the answers. And the only way you're going to know what those answers are is by reaching out to them and by talking to them. And then thirdly, you've got to make peace with failure. For me, I think I got to a point, and I am at a point in my life where I don't look at failure the same. I either say, okay, Jamelia, you had a goal to do X and you didn't do it. You didn't meet that goal. Why is that? Is it because you were focused on other things? Is it because your strategy was wrong? Do you really want that goal? Do you really need that goal? And if the answer is yes, I do need that goal, then I'll just find another way to do it. Like, I'm not going to give up. And entrepreneurship involves trial, error, and learning on the fly. So you've got to just make peace with failure. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when, and you got to learn how to learn from it. That's what I'd say to you about the transition. But now let's talk about what happened after I took the leap. After Bite Bow was born, as they say, I wanted it to really be focused on data privacy and innovation. But like I said, I started to get more Web3 and blockchain work in. And I got to a point where I really wanted to scale. I had too much work coming in, and I needed other lawyers to help me do this work. So I started interviewing people. I put out a few ads. I started interviewing lawyers. And the main thing that people would tell me is, this role sounds amazing. I'd love to do it. You just need to teach me. And look, as a small business owner, if you have to pay someone to teach them, it doesn't make business sense, right? And so after hearing that same story 5, 6, 7 times, I said, maybe there's business here, right? And that's kind of how you discover things as an entrepreneur. You may not be looking for that, but that's kind of how things come about. Maybe there's a need for lawyers to learn about blockchain technology. Now, remember, I had been in the data and tech space for 15 years. So for me, this was kind of like the natural evolution. Okay, we're looking at data infrastructure. We're looking at, data sovereignty. Oh, now we're talking about blockchain. It was all natural. But I think at some point I had taken for granted the fact that I had all of this data and tech background. Because when I started speaking to other lawyers, they're like, oh, yeah, I was in an M&A, I was a transactional lawyer, or, I was in litigation. Like, there's so many different types of law, and not everyone has that experience in data and technology. So I saw the need in the market, and so I started to teach lawyers about Web3 and blockchain. And that ended up being a revenue stream for my business. And so here we are today, where I've gone, from who are we teaching? We're teaching lawyers. Where are they based? Usually they were based in US or some other place in the world. And now we're looking at, okay, well, who else can we help? Who else can we teach? Maybe we can teach entrepreneurs about Web3 and blockchain. If they want to start freelancing, if they want to start their own business, maybe there's value in them understanding the technology. And that's really what we're working on today with my company. And even as I talk about it today, and as I talk about, just stumbling across this idea, I will say that none of this was easy, right? Funding, establishing credibility, marketing, tackling the newness of Web3. Even today, it's still new, right? These were all steep climbs, but each obstacle that I overcame, whether it's landing a partner that's giving a grant or scoring, new clients, it proved to me that my mission mattered. It mattered what I did. And I might not have a team of 50 people. I may not be a huge business, but the work that I do matters. And at the end of the day, if you go back to why you're pursuing entrepreneurship, it should be because you want to create impact. It's because you want to feel when you go to sleep at night that you've done something to make the world a better place. So the key lesson in all of this would be to stay adaptable. particularly in this tech space. Tech evolves at lightning speed. And, regulations can change overnight. Startups that survive and thrive are the ones that stay true to their values while being flexible on their strategies. I literally just talked about this to a cohort of mentees where I'm working with Open Campus on that. And these are entrepreneurs who are really creating some cutting edge ways to tokenize information, to use AI agents for cybersecurity, to use AI agents for learning in the education space. And I asked them today, I really challenged them. I said, you're coming up with all of this great technology, but you and I both know that the environment that we're living in today, there's actually a huge danger in what you're creating, right? There's all kinds of risks, right? We all know that. So what is your narrative? What is your brand story? What is your mission? What are the things that you will do and you will not do? And it's funny, but I don't think many people think about that to start, right? Some people do. Some people say, I'm going to create this thing because I'm really passionate about healthcare. So I'm creating an AI healthcare agent, something like that. But other people may just be builders. They may be developers, and they think, oh, I can connect this and build this way, and then this will work, and I can monetize it, and no one ever thinks about the why, right? You have to do that. You have to think about the why, and so staying true to your value, but being flexible on your strategy, I think that's a core piece of this whole journey. This is really the story of how I went from negotiating global contracts to launching my own startup and in Dubai. And, ByteBow is paving the way for a more inclusive future in Web3. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. I feel really fulfilled to the extent that we can do that work. But listen, if you've been itching to start something yourself, remember, the hardest part is often just taking that first step. Don't let fear or uncertainty keep you from creating something extraordinary. Guys, I would love to keep this conversation going. I invite you to join me on March 26th for my next webinar, where we're going to explore how you can do something similar yourself. Many of you have reached out and have said, Jamelia, I want to create a business in Dubai. I want to leave the US. I want to do something like this, but I have no idea where to start. I don't know about legal entity setup. I don't know about visas. I don't know about the market. I don't have a network. These are all things that can easily be solved with the right guidance. And so the webinar on March 26th is called the Dubai Business Blueprint, where I will lead and I will host for 1 full hour. These are the things that you need to know about the market. And at the end of this webinar, I invite those who are interested to consider the coaching program that I've rolled out, because the reality is that if you don't have someone guiding you through this, someone who's done it, right? Someone who has done it and is still doing it, there are so many mistakes you can make, guys. And I don't want to see anybody make those mistakes. And admittedly, I made mistakes when I first came to Dubai. I totally did. But being in my 4th year now and having lived in China and done all these things for these big companies, I know how to play the game. I know how things work. And I'd love to share that information with you all. So if you're interested in joining that webinar, make sure you check out the link that's in the show notes today. You can sign up there. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to this show. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend who might need that extra nudge. We all know somebody that texts us at like 7 a.m. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to work, or I'm tired of this. People that are just complaining and complaining. And the only answer to these complaints is to change something. You can't continually complain about the same thing and then not want to take action. So share it if you need to share it. That's my message to you all. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast if you haven't. And if you haven't joined our mailing list, join that. You won't want to miss our upcoming chats about tech, transformation, and the future of work. So until next time, I'm Jamelia Greer, reminding you that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one. Can't wait to see you guys at the webinar. Take care. Hey guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. I appreciate when you guys tune in and the time that you take to listen to the show and support us. And I have one thing that I'd love for you to do that would really help us out, which is rate the show. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you rate it. You can do it on whatever platform you're listening on. That would do wonders for us. And if you really want to be a super fan and really support the show, there's a link below that you can support us and donate a small monthly contribution, which allows us to continue to create great content for you. Thanks so much again. Appreciate you and see you next time.